Yo, what's going on, everybody? White Tiger 93 here, guys, coming the Tiger, and today we are back playing some more Wizard101. Today, guys, I have the next episode of the Arcanum studies, which if you guys don't know, that's my side series where we come up with different ideas about the game, different ideas to the game. We talk about different like teasers and stories that's already in the game, do a little bit of foreshadowing, that kind of thing. It's a very kind of series that I don't touch too often. It is a side series. I've only had a few episodes, but this is the next episode. Today, guys, we are looking at an idea by Ceren Nightchant over on Twitter, a awesome Wizard101 community member. Really cool idea that he gave to me to review in this video, and I was really excited to make a video on this because I think it's a really cool idea, and I would like to try it out myself. So, just getting straight into this next episode of Arcanum Studies by this idea by Ceren Nightchant. So, as you guys can see, this is the idea right here. The House of Infinite Basement. Basically, it's an infinite floor dungeon. There's leaderboards that track progress. Mana is infinite, but health is not. There will not be rooms that give health. The average level of the player defines the difficulty. Difficulty categories are 50 to 75, 76 to 100, 100 to 130, and 130 plus because that's our current max. So basically, it's leveled out between different level categories. The difficulty of the dungeon is, of course, dependent on your wizard's level as well, so that balances out. And then, of course, you gotta think about health is infinite, but mana is not. So as you're going through this infinite dungeon, you can cast as many spells as you want, you can use whatever strategy you want, but you do not have infinite health, and you have leaderboards that track your progress as you go. So the further the player goes in that category, they get ranked up on a leaderboard. Whether this will be correlated to prizes, I don't know. That's kind of interesting. Maybe decorations, trophies, badges, that kind of thing. But leaderboard will track a player's category and their progress. So really cool idea. And just to take a look at the map real quick to see where we are at in Unicorn Way. We are currently, as you can see right up here in this little corner. The Wizard of Oz Dorothy reference is right down there, by the way. So right here, up here in Unicorn Way, I think it's really cool it's in Unicorn Way as well. Brings back even the highest level wizards back to where the journey began, especially Unicorn Way. So really cool. I like the spot for this. I think it's really awesome. So that's where that's located. But back to actually looking at the dungeon itself. An infinite dungeon where you compete against other players to see how far you can go, and the difficulty depends on the level category. So really kind of like a balanced out, just full out solo tower dungeon to see how far you can go, which I think is a really cool idea. Really, I really would like to try this out in game. But go ahead and taking a look at some of the other stuff as well that comes along with it. The ranks of the bosses, first time for each, rank 50, second time, rank 100, third, rank 999, and then as the ranks keep going up, it's going to, of course, begin more difficult, more difficult, more difficult. So really interesting how much powerful these bosses will become. So taking a look, we do have some images that he has sent me from his idea right here. So that's just a list of the bosses that we currently have that I have images of right here. So starting out, we're looking at the Lost Soul General dialogue, welcome to the basement. As you guys can see up on screen, just kind of speed it up. I'm not going to specifically talk about each independent factor of the actual dungeon, like health, damage, resist. If you guys can check that out on screen, I'm just going to kind of summarize here. So important thing to know is just starting out 5,000, 12,000, 20,000, 1 million. So that's just the first thing that pops out, because this is, of course, the infinite dungeon. This is supposed to be a difficult tower to see how far you can go. Damage 10%, 25%, 50%, 200%, depending on what rank, what category, that kind of thing. As you guys see here, risk goes up as well. Resist to death, shadow, storm, and myth. Checking out the next boss, revived Rattlebones. So brought back, not through Exalted, not through Master, not through the Shadow version of him in Mirage, but we're looking at Rattlebones Revived Unicorn Way Edition. So starting at health 7,500, 15,500, 22,000, and then of course, if my eyes do not deceive me, that is 1 million right there. Damage 15%, 25, 50, 200%, depending on, of course, you know, your rank. Resist, dash, shadow, and eyes. But this is where we see our first cheat. Why use so much energy? Rattlebones creates rank 15 Rattlebones boss. You have to join the fight when players use AoE attacks. So if you use an AoE attack, boom, you have Rattlebones coming. So really interesting idea. That's a really interesting mechanic as well. Being able to summon a boss depending on a certain type of spell, which I think would be really cool to be incorporated in the game. But you guys can see this is obviously just starting out as a challenge. But like I said, guys, level, it is dependent on the difficulty. You lower the level, the difficulty will be more balanced towards you. So, moving on forward, we have Lady Black Hope has returned 10,000, 1,800, 2,300, 1 million. And then, as you can see there, are the other stats. So the cheat, I wish you would heal me. Lady Black Hope gains 50% of all health healed from healing spells and drain that heal for over 500 health. That's very interesting. That is basically a way of a boss being able to cheat their way back into health without having to actually cast a spell on himself. And that takes away health from you as well, so that's definitely an interesting cheat to help combat heals, definitely in some tougher battles, which I think would be really cool to see further along in the game. Next up, we have the Infernal Harvest Lord, based off our old favorite boss from Shrine Avenue, next to Nightchant, of course. 9,000, 11,250, 17,000, 1 million. As you guys can see, the health is increasing depending on the rank category, but we're topping it off at 1 million max. And as you can see, the other stats on the screen. Cheat. Oh, did that burn? If the Infernal Harvest Lord uses an attack over rank 4 with a Fire Blade, he casts a Meteor Strike, which I think this is a really cool concept that can be applied for different bosses later on in the game, to where they basically, there is no guarantee that they will use a cheat, but they do have a cheat if it is allowed. Now, removing this blade, for example, would not allow this cheat to be triggered, which I think is a really cool game mechanic that can apply to all sorts of battles in the future. But this cheat right here is for the Infernal Harvest Lord, which I think is really interesting because it's not an overpowering cheat. It is a very interesting cheat that could be allowed. It's not going to be programmed in to say, oh, I got to expect this cheat coming, oh, it's going to do this. This is just something that it might happen and might not. Very mysterious type thing, and I really like that element to this cheat as well. Now, looking up at the next one we have Blazing Croc Common. I'm hoping I said that right. So we don't have any stats for this particular boss right here because you guys can see the boss itself is not entirely finished. But looking at the cheat here, burn those blades away. If a player casts any blade, a skull is cast, and all of every player's blades are removed. So very standard cheat for this boss as well. But we got to remember, guys, the difficulty is getting harder as we progress. And sending Croc Patrick here for the next boss, as you can see, the stats are back up. Slightly more difficult, still capping off at 1 million health with the cheat of Wizard. Try taking more risks. Croc Patrick casts Insane Bolt when a player uses a shield. So that's very interesting. You got to think about that. Each one of these battles is kind of using a different mechanic. It's not adding up all the mechanics together. It's not saying you got to use the same strategy for each floor. Each floor has a different, unique purpose, and it really is testing your way to be able to go through the entire dungeon itself. So right here, we already know that this boss is going to be a little bit more difficult than the bosses we faced. If you use your shield right here, you're going to get hit with Insane Bolt, or you might knock out Croc Patrick with Insane Bolt by yourself. We don't know that exactly. But it is a very interesting mechanic. This also kind of what I like to call the dice mechanic, because it can really negatively affect the boss itself and actually eliminate the boss for you if you're willing to take that risk as well. And you got to realize you got to rely on hitting and not defense. So another very interesting cheat mechanic right here as well. Next up, we have Radiating Raw. Unknown rank, unknown stats. A cheat, a fight must be fair. Raw casts a global plus 30% amplify bubble. If it is changed, Raw changes it back and casts a Sandstorm that stuns. So very interesting. So it's utilizing a spell that's already in the game, combining it with another type of feature in the game, stunning, and having a boost up in the room, which will also help benefit the player as well. So like I said, each floor right here is changing up the mechanic and strategy you have to use to actually keep on going, keep progressing. And all these cheats are not necessarily limited to the boss himself. Some of these cheats are really helpful to the player to be able to use as well. Alright, so escapee Katzenstein right here. Stats up on the board. Cheat, it's working. Using wards or shields, Katzenstein casts an earthquake that deals death damage. So very interesting, kind of flipping up a spell that we're used to. Takes away wards, takes away the shields, and it does death damage as well, so something you would expect. But what does appear to be a death boss as well. Escapee Moriarty. So Moriarty, of course, a classic from Rattlebone. Stats are up on the screen. Cheat. Remember Yax the Scratcher? May already cast a ballast shadow damage plus 35% pierce whenever a universal shield is cast, which is a very interesting mechanic. Not necessarily a blade, but a universal shield, or not necessarily a ward, but a universal shield, which I think is a very, very interesting idea here, because it's not limiting on what he can use. So we got to think about it. What kind of spells could he use that you would have to use a single shield versus over a tower shield, for example, to trigger the cheat? You want to avoid that. You want to use a specific school, but what schools can this boss have? A very interesting cheat mechanic right there. Fallor Bramble, as you guys can see, cheat. I hypnotized yours. You're not that hard. Using astral spells lets Lord Bramble begin to beguile that player, which is a very, very interesting mechanic for a boss to be able to beguile a player and being able to benefit as well. And you gotta remember, so you're the only person in this dungeon, so if you get beguiled, there is no helping for you that round. You're gonna have to hope that you can cast something such as Blade, either on yourself, or maybe they could even consider doing some type of setup to where you can have a special type of trap that hits you, so if you ever get beguiled, you can put that trap on whoever beguiled you. Randolph Spellshine, cheat from Pigswick, rules can be bent. As you guys know, Pigswick is the home of the cheaters that tried to claim the Spiral Cup, which I'm still waiting on a Wisteria Part 2 expansion, by the way, but that's for another video in the future. If Randolph casts a rank 4 spell, he casts a Shadow Vampire, dealing triple damage the player hit with. So, that is a very interesting idea mechanic, because whatever that the player does on this boss, Randolph is going to cast a rank 4 spell that will do triple the damage. If he casts a rank 4 spell, it will triple damage that the player hit with. So it's a very interesting idea. Depending on how much you hit, you're going to risk being hit with 3 times that much in return. So another level of planning. Next boss, Internal Warani. As you guys can see, these bosses are getting progressively harder. 13,500 health just to start out with, and once again capped off at 1,000,000. Cheat, I have risen before, I will rise again. Upon killing the Black Plague Oni, he gains 200% of damage dealt on the killing blow. He transforms into a Plague Ninja Pig. Think about that, guys. So once he's healed, he kind of comes back in another form. Once you get him, he gains 200% of that damage dealt on the killing blow, which is a very, very interesting mechanic. You hit him, who knows how much damage he can accumulate because of your big hit that you put on him. And as well, that's not necessarily defeating him, so maybe smaller hits work its way up, and then when he transforms into the Plague Ninja Pig, yeah, that's when you have to plan your final hit, which really sanctions the game up from people that currently set up for a big hit. This way you can plan for smaller hits to do this, and not necessarily have to rely on a bigger hit, which really kind of changes up the way the game is currently played. Black Plague Oni right here. As you can see, gaining a little bit more difficulty. Cheat, Behold the Plague. All players receive a negative 65% infection and a minus 15 weakness. So very small cheat here, guys. But you gotta remember, we've already gone through 6-7 floors by now. We're running low on health. Assuming that you don't heal before, you're not gonna have much health now. You would have to heal if you want to make it this far. But a minus 65% infection, that really knocks off major heals for this floor, which is a very kind of game stopper. This is where it limits your progress going in through the tower and really tests your ability to strategize how you want to heal before you defeat him. And of course a minus 15% weakness as well, so this is basically a floor that really kind of slows you down. Once again, a very interesting idea to kind of slow the gameplay a little bit. The Eternal Jade Oni here, as you can see, it's a little bit stronger. Cheat, be gone of these things. When a player has 8 pips, the Eternal Jade Oni mana burns that player. So, you gotta think about that. You can hit before you get to 8 pips, but that really limits the amount of spells you got. Some of the better spells in the game, for example, Storm Owl for Storm Wizards, you cannot use 8 pips to... that requires more than 8 pips, you can't hit with that. The King Artoria spells has 8 pips, you can't hit with that. You're gonna get mana burned here. But you can still hit with smaller things, so that kind of slows that down. You don't necessarily have a cheat that negatively affects you, you just have to use different spells to do this. So not necessarily relying on a stat mechanic, but relying on a spell planning mechanic, which I really like. And I'm assuming you can change your decks in the tower, by the way, as well. Cheat. That spell must be mine. for the Arcane Warmaster. Warmaster's return, tougher than ever. Warmaster uses a treasure card or shadow/shadow enhanced spell against its caster upon hitting. The spell leaves a negative 20% weakness and negative 35% accuracy debuff. So you gotta think about that. Uses any treasure card or shadow/shadow enhanced spell against its caster. So I'm assuming that means that if you were to use a shadow pip spell against her and she survives it, she's gonna hit you back with that. And it's gonna leave 20% weakness and a 35% accuracy debuff. So that's really very powerful spell as well. For example, Abominable Waver for Ice Wizards. You hit with Abominable Waver, it does a decent amount of damage, but she's going to hit you right back with that Abominable Waver and get that shield on her for herself as well. So definitely a very interesting mechanic as well, right there, to really kind of plan on limiting the use of shadow spells and playing on spells that have already been added earlier in the game. Silvia Drake Illusion. Not necessarily Silvia Drake, but an illusion. So as you can see, a little bit stronger than all the bosses we've been seeing before. Cheat. Mouster, my darling, I'm still here. When a player uses Heal All spells, Silvia Drake casts Beguile on the user and a Tower Shield on herself. But you gotta remember, Silvia Drake was the former Life Professor, so the idea that this correlated to healing spells, this casts a Beguile on them, not being able to allow that person to do anything for their team, and put the Tower Shield on herself. So remember, you don't have any way to get health besides healing, so this floor is definitely going to kind of slow you down in the way of heals. Call a Shadow Song from the world of Grizzleheim and Winter Tusk. Cheat, the power of the Coven. Unknown stats here, but Call will use Burning Rampage if it's hit for more than 1,000, more than 10,000 damage in a round. So, if he we use Burning Rampage if he's hit for less than 1,000 or more than 10,000. So you gotta aim in between. So you can't plan up for a major hit. You can't use, you can't overly power with Bugs, Storm Owl. You can't hit big with Karulu, Winged Sorrow. You can't hit big with any Shadow Enhanced spells. King Artorias, that can be a very powerful spell as well. You really have to limit how much damage you can do, which limits saving up for a bigger hit, but you can't go too low. So with 1,000, that's really not that difficult, but not going over 10,000, it's actually going to be a lot trickier than you would think. Munin Mistborn with unknown stats as well. Cheat, Behold the Coven. Munin may cast a Mass Infection, AoE heals, or a mass negative 25% on AoE attacks. So that's very interesting. That's limiting the amount of heals and the amount of attacks that you can use to hit all. Will they have minions in this battle? I don't know, but would you rely on a hit all spell for this? That would be up to you. Queen of the Deep. As you guys can see, the stats are getting a little bit more stronger as we go along still. Cheat, drown, drown, drown. If a player uses an X-Pip spell, for example, Tempest, Snowball, Snowball Fight, I think that's the penguin one for Ice Wizards, Snowball Fight, something like that. Anyway, if a player uses a Pip spell, the Queen Calypso casts a Tempest with the amount of pips used by the caster, which is really interesting. Storm Wizards rely on Tempest a lot whenever they don't have a significant heal or significant hit in their deck. Tempest can do a lot of damage. Tempest can remove any type of negatives on that player without having to wait to do that. Tempest is known as one of the better storm spells. Should Tempest be removed at all because I'm saying that? I don't think so. Tempest is definitely a spell that should be in the game. But this really does limit the amount of being able to use an X spell, Tempest, Snowball Fight. You can't really use that. So definitely a very interesting mechanic. Flamemataira, as you guys can see, a little bit tougher. Cheat, the sun burns in all of us. When Flamemataira has no blades, she casts a plus 70% damage solar blade on herself and a 10% pierce solar spear to players. Now I'm assuming, I don't know if that necessarily means put the pierce on her or the pierce on the players, but that would be a very interesting mechanic, knowing that she basically gave herself a feint. But I don't know. Now, I'm assuming this is a solo, but because it says players, I'm not entirely sure if you can have more than one player at a time or not. But that is a very interesting idea mechanic right there, adding herself a blade if she doesn't have one already. So it basically guarantees that she's going to have a plus 70 at least once in that battle, because she would automatically start the battle off with that cheat if she didn't have a blade at the beginning of the battle. The brutal Belloc. Everybody remembers Belloc. He follows us for a few worlds. He is kind of the chain on the feet of the wizard in Arc 2. Cheat, are you still weak to hurt me? Belloc must take at least 100 damage a round, or he casts a 0-pip Nested Fury. Shadow Enhanced spell right here. Because Belloc, he's a tough cookie. Ouch, that hurt. A Belloc takes more than 5,500, 7,500, 25, or 12,500 damage. He casts a Balanced Tempest, but does not cost pips. So we gotta think about this. Now we're adding in more cheats. This is more than just a single cheat. Belloc is really taking it up to the next level. So you have to hit him every round, but you have to be careful that you don't overhit him. So you definitely gotta hit, 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 hit. You can't plan up for a big hit, which really changes how the game is played. Undead Starboard Spider, cheat, behold the Spider Queen's army. If any single target attack is used, the spider summons 2 copies of himself. The copies have the same HP it has. So we gotta think about that. If a single target attack is used, King Atoria, Storm Owl. I'm thinking really Storm because guys, I'm a main Storm Wizard. What are some other popular single attack spells people use? Hungry Caterpillar, Abominable Weaver. Wings of Sorrow, for example. When you hit with that, you will summon more of them. So you can't necessarily rely on a single hit, because if you keep hitting single hit, there's going to summon more and more and more. You can't really defeat it unless you just completely knock that out with a single hit, which you might want to use a hit all. Undying Winter Worm, Unknown Stab Boss, cheat. If you stop my winter once, it will not happen again. If any overtime fire spells are cast, a 0 pip Frost Giant is cast. So this limits overtime spells. Specifically, this will target a range of fire spells more than any other school spell. That's kind of interesting. You know, we don't know how much health it has right now, but it might have a lot of health to where maybe it'd be benefit to hit over time. Undying Baneworm, cheat. I am death, I am your bane. If any heal spells are cast, Baneworm uses a Doom and Gloom bubble and a Mass Infection. So like I said, guys, you can't get your health back by any floor. You have to use healing spells throughout the floors themselves. And so, when you come up to here, if any health spells are used in this battle, you get Doom and Gloom, Bubble, and Mass Infection. So you get ideally 1 heal, so you might want to heal, and then hit that round to kill. The Winter Dragon, Black Dragon. 2 bosses on this floor. First double boss, and we have more cheats. Only 1 spawns randomly, selects between the 2. Okay, so only 1 of them spawns. White Dragon, if blades are cast, he earthquakes and summons the Black Dragon alongside himself. So if you cast a blade, boom, twice of them. Are we going to see this with traps as well? Black Dragon, if wards are cast, he earthquakes and then summons White Dragon alongside himself as well. So we got to remember, if he summons the other counterpart, does the other counterpart have the cheats that it's supposed to have if it was just him at first? Very interesting. I like the idea of being able to summon a boss depending on certain random mechanics. Really cool idea that I would really like to see in the game. Late Ponce of Gibon, cheat. You will join us someday. Every 7 rounds, Ponce gains a poison that beguiles on its final round. It's a very interesting mechanic. Every 7 rounds, you have to plan a hit. It's a cycle. I think cycles are really cool for tougher battles. So really liking the idea for this one. Lord of the Dead. My family will escort you to Tartarus. If a player is healed from the dead, Hades summons a minion of Zeus, Myth, Storm, Poseidon, Ice, Apollo, Life, Ares, Desert Fire, or Kronos balance to fight with him depending on the school the wizard healed. So it looks like we are seeing maybe that more than 1 wizard can go in, so I might have incorrectly said that. If it is just 1 wizard, then I guess this will apply to healing yourself, but if a wizard is dead, that you can bring in with you and you heal that, it summons a minion depending on the school of the wizard. So really cool idea. I like that. Very interesting mechanic. We don't really have a cheat like this in the game that I'm aware of, so I really like the idea. Nightmare. So real quick, guys, this is actually in the wrong order for whatever reason, so we need to go ahead and just skip that one. So coming back here, as you guys can see, we are at Lively Shadow Queen. Second to last boss that I have an image for. So Lively Shadow Queen, cheat. I am death, I appreciate life. If drain spells are cast, a Doom and Gloom is cast. So once again, this limits the amount of heals you can do. I feel alive. Heal all spells cast by players are also cast on Morganth. So once again, if you cast a heal all spell, Morganth gets that health as well. So very limiting your heals, by the way, because this is that final floor. And then taking a look at the final boss that I have an image for right here is Nightmare. Why this is out of order, I'm not entirely sure why it's like that in my presentation, but whatever. So final boss, Nightmares, as you can see, it's the Nightmare Ambrose. Cheat if your power dwindles in comparison to mine. If any traps or blades are casted, Morrow Ambrose will clear any traps and blades and will cast a Mass Feint. Each feint is 300% or a Balance Blade on himself, 200%. So you don't necessarily know what spell he's going to cast, which kind of mixes up the idea of cheats. If you plan ahead for a cheat, you make a strategy. But if you don't know what that cheat's going to do, when it's going to be active, if it'll be active, that really mixes up a strategy and kind of takes away the fact that you can do a single strategy every time you run it. So really like that idea. Next cheat, no dialogue. Dealing damage makes Wizard take 15% of what is dealt. You hit him for something for 1,000, you're going to get hit with the 15% of that 150. So you got to think about that. Bigger hits, more damage to you. You might want to hit over time. You might want to get ready for heals, because heals are not banned from this battle, and they're not even given a negative penalty if you use them. So very interesting idea mechanic. This is the final boss we have an image for. The idea of the tower is to be infinite. You keep on going. But this is where we are leaving off the video. So very interesting idea. I really like the different mechanics he has on cheats. We really, for most of the cheats he has showed us, we really do not have a cheat in the game that works exactly like what he has given us. So really good idea. Hopefully some of these cheats will make it into the game. I really think they're really interesting. I like the idea of an infinite tower, being able to see how far you can go, which is different from what we got from the Decathlon. Decathlon has a limit. Decathlon doesn't necessarily compare player strategy per se. This kind of says no matter what your level are, you can come up with your own strategy, and you can see just how far you can go. So I really do like this idea. I think it'd be really cool. I like it in a unicorn way. I like the cheat mechanics. Very interesting idea. So thank you, Ceren Nightchant, for allowing me to make a video on it, for sending me all these images. I really do appreciate it. So let me know what you guys think in the comments down below of this idea that he has given us, the House of the Infinite Basement Dungeon. And thank you guys for watching. I don't want to drag on too much longer, but leave down in the comments your ideas on this, your feedback. I'm sure you'd love to hear it, and I think, like I said, it's just a really cool idea. So, leave any kind of feedback you guys got in the comments as well. And until my next video, I will see you guys next time. Thank you guys for watching, and check out Ceren Nightchant. His link will be down in the description down below to his Twitter. Until next time, I'll see you guys. Tiger93 out.